could have asked him. For some reason, I kept to myself about it. It was like I wanted a reason to be mad, to keep my distance, to hold back. It's right about then I began stealing from the treasury. I don't know why I did it. I didn't need the money. We had everything we needed. I know how to make money. I told myself it was no big deal, just a little bit. I told myself that we couldn't be sure the money was going to be used properly. Truth is, it was just pride. I wanted to prove to myself that I was my own man. I wasn't under anybody's spell. I wasn't bound to anybody. The darkness was creeping back in. So it went for several months. Outwardly, I was going along with things, but inwardly, I was nursing my discontent. Jesus grew more and more somber, speaking about suffering and death. The crowds grew smaller, the miracles fewer. He seemed to have some kind of a death wish. He was determined to go to Jerusalem. Even though we knew if he made trouble there, it would stop at nothing to silence him. Still, I went along, biding my time. There was always the chance he would find his courage and seize the moment. But if not, I had a plan. I was putting some money away. I was plotting my way out. I've been around long enough to know you always need a plan. It was just a few days ago we rode into town here, and for just a moment, it looked as though something might be happening. The city, of course, is full of pilgrims here for the Passover. Rebel spirit in the air, as it always is this time of year. When they heard that Jesus was coming, the prophet, the miracle worker from Galilee, they came out in droves to meet him. They lined the streets, waving their branches, throwing cloaks in the road. Hosanna, they said, save us. Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. It looked to everyone like something was about to happen. The others, they believed it all, the whole thing I could tell. They were already lining up their thrones alongside Jesus. But didn't they see what was happening? He didn't come into town on a stallion, like a king coming to claim his city. He came on a donkey, the foal of a donkey, no less. He came in peace, in humility, and weakness. Weakness, if you ask me. That's the way it always is with Jesus. Just when you think you know who he is and what he's about, he does the last thing in the world you'd expect. Turns you inside out. And that's when I decided that I was done. This little insurrection was going nowhere. If the religious authorities didn't shut it down, then the Romans certainly would bring an end to it. Jesus may have been prepared to die for his cause, but I was not. And so I came up with a plan. I knew the authorities were looking for a way to take him, but they needed help. They would need someone on the inside. They had to take him quietly, out of the view of the crowd. So the first chance I had, I slipped away from the crew and went to the high priest's house. What will you give me to deliver Jesus of Nazareth? I said. They leapt at the opportunity. 30 pieces of silver, they said. 30 pieces. They sell slaves for 30 pieces. Why not a washed-up rabbi? We struck a deal, and I promised to deliver him before the end of the week. And so it was last night. We found ourselves right here, this room, at this very table. The evening began strangely. We had just sat down to eat, and Jesus got up. He took off his robe, he wrapped a towel around his waist, and he began to wash our feet. All of our feet. It's very uncomfortable. Especially since we had just been jostling for the seats of honor at the table. He began with Peter, who of course said, "Never, Lord, you shall never wash my feet." You'd think he would learn by now to think before he said. He washed Peter's feet. Don around the table. And he came to me last, and he washed my feet. And he seemed to linger at my feet, as if he knew something. The moment passed, and it was time to eat. And then Jesus said, "I tell you the truth. One of you is going to betray me." It was the last thing in the world anyone expected to hear around this table, least of all me. How could he know? How could he possibly know? The others looked at each other in disbelief. "Surely it is not I, Lord," they all said. I had to say something, so I went along with it. "Surely it is not I, Rabbi." I couldn't bring myself to call him Lord. I never had, and I wasn't about to now. Jesus picked up on it. I know. He always knows what's going on in your heart. There was some whispering at the table. Peter, John, Jesus, that little tight circle. I could never get into that little circle. Next thing I know, Jesus is offering me a piece of bread dipped in the bowl. It seemed to signify something. I wasn't sure what. Until I took it. And he said to me, "What you are about to do it quickly." So he knew. He knew. I didn't know how to interpret his words. What, was he daring me to do it? Or was he daring me not? Giving me one last chance to turn, to stay at the table. Could I have stayed? Would things have been different if I had stayed at the table? But I couldn't. I had my plan. I'd made my decision, so I knew I had to act quickly. I dismissed myself from the table, told them I had some business to take care of. I stepped out into the night, the darkest night I've ever been in. I hustled over to the high priest's house. "Get the temple guards together," I said, "quickly. Jesus is on to me. The others will be too. We need to take him tonight. And make sure you have enough men." I wasn't expecting a fight, but I had seen him escape before. I knew where they were going. There's this garden on the side of the Mount of Olives. It's a favorite place of his. It took us too long to get ourselves together. By the time we arrived, they were already there. As I expected, the disciples were no threat. They were sound asleep. But Jesus was ready for us. Saw us coming, in fact, and rose to meet us, as if he was the one in charge. He came right up to me. "Greetings, friend," he said. I resented it. This was my moment. I was in charge now. Not to be outdone, I came right up to him, kissed him on the cheek. "Greetings, Rabbi," I said. And on my signal, the guards moved in quickly. Well, suddenly the fisherman found his courage and took a swipe with his sword. True to form, he missed his mark, succeeded only in making a mess of things. But the guards had things into hand quickly. Jesus was bound and led away, and the disciples, all of them, they disappeared into the woods. So much for their love and loyalty. They're no better than I am. followed him back into town. They took him first to the house of Annas, where they slapped him around a bit. Then off to the house of Caiaphas, the high priest, for the formal hearing. And true to form, they made a mess of things. False witnesses, botched testimony. It was obvious they had paid people off to bear witness, and even they couldn't get their story straight. But it didn't matter. They weren't looking for justice. They just needed a charge that would stick. And they found one: blasphemy. Next morning, they sent him off to the Sanhedrin for formal sentencing. Just this morning. Now, the council could have done anything they wanted with him. They could have given him a beating he would never forget. They could have locked him away for a good long time. But that wasn't enough for them. They wanted vengeance. They wanted blood. So they decided to send him to Pilate. Suddenly I realized what was happening. They wanted a death sentence. They wanted crucifixion. As soon as they led him out of the room, I burst into the room. "What have you done?" I said. "You've made me a sinner. I've betrayed innocent blood." Whatever this Jesus was, he was not a criminal. He didn't deserve this. "What is that to us?" they said, laughing in my face. "You deal with it." I took those 30 pieces and threw it across the floor at them. "Take your money." They just laughed. Confound them. Confound him. Confound all of us for what we have done. And so here I am, back in this room, where last night I made a fateful decision, and where tonight I must make another one. What would you have me do? Go back to him now? You hear what's happening? They're taking him to Golgotha right now. What am I to do? Go throw myself at the foot of his cross, begging for mercy? After all this time, admit that he was right? Don't you see all I have left is my pride, my dignity, my freedom to choose? No, I have a plan. To many, it's an unthinkable plan, but it is my plan. What you are about to do quickly, he said to me last night. Is that what he's saying to me again? Is he daring me again to do the unthinkable? Or is he daring me not to? Giving me one more chance to turn. To believe that somewhere in all of this there's good news for a sinner like me. If only I could believe that. If only that could be true. Not in the world I live in. I know what I must do.